United States Coast Guard released this dramatic video showing the exact moment they intercepted a narco-submarine. A Marine Patrol aircraft was flying a routine mission off the Pacific coast when the crew suddenly spotted the faint outline of a submarine moving just beneath the water's surface. They immediately radioed the U.S. Coast Guard, and within minutes, 2 fast response boats and a helicopter swarmed the area. In the video, you can clearly see the Coast Guard crew pull right up alongside the moving submarine, while the smugglers inside remain completely oblivious. Welcome to another video from Voxen TV. If you love stories like this, hit that subscribe button. It's the easiest way to keep us bringing you more. Finally, the officers force open the submarine's top hatch and pull the stunned smugglers out one by one. Inside this specific narco-submarine, they found nearly 6,600 pounds of cocaine silently making its way from South America to the United States. This was just one of the roughly 200 narco-submarines that authorities captured between 2006 and 2025. But those are just the ones that got caught. Every single year, dozens of unseen submarines successfully deliver thousands of pounds of illegal drugs into the U.S. without anyone ever knowing. So, how exactly do narco-submarines work? Why are they nearly impossible to catch? And where in the world are they being built? Drug smuggling is a relentless industry, and every country constantly creates new agencies and strategies to try and stop it. But despite throwing billions of dollars at the problem, countries in the US and Europe still haven't been able to stop it entirely. The biggest reason is simple. Massive drug cartels constantly evolve, always working to stay 2 steps ahead of anti-drug forces. From the very beginning, South America has been the absolute stronghold of the illegal drug mafia, and it all comes down to its unique climate, which is absolutely perfect for growing the coca plant. Currently, Colombia produces more cocaine than any other country on Earth. In fact, 90% of all the cocaine seized in the U.S. is traced directly back to Colombia. Next in line are Peru and Bolivia. Together, these 3 South American nations form what is known as the Andean Triangle. An incredible 99.5% of the world's entire cocaine supply is produced inside these 3 countries. Over the decades, the cartels have used countless methods to move these drugs into Central America, Europe, and the U.S. Back in the 1960s, when security was practically non-existent, smugglers would literally just pack cocaine into their regular luggage and fly on commercial passenger planes. As airport security tightened, they switched to hiding massive shipments on massive cargo ships. But because the profit margins in smuggling are so astronomically high, cartels can afford to get creative. During the 1980s, the drug mafia started buying fleets of small Cessna airplanes. They would fly these planes out of Colombia and land them on tiny Caribbean islands like the Bahamas, or on secret, hand-carved airstrips deep in the Central American jungles. This was the era when Pablo Escobar's infamous Medellin cartel controlled an estimated 80% of the global cocaine market. Smugglers like Carlos later literally bought entire islands to use as private smuggling hubs for these small planes. However, as military radar systems became far more advanced, law enforcement started tracking and shooting down these small planes. So, the cartels evolved again, this time turning to speedboats. But these weren't your average civilian boats. They were specially modified, low-profile vessels packed with massive racing engines. They would load these boats to the brim and blast across the water toward the Caribbean islands at blinding speeds. By the time the Coast Guard spotted them, the boats had already dropped their cargo and vanished. But once again, the U.S. and its allies adapted. They heavily increased marine patrols along the Caribbean and Pacific coasts and deployed highly advanced sea-level radar systems, making it incredibly easy to track these go-fast boats. By the 1990s, the massive drug lords realized both the sky and the surface of the ocean were completely locked down. This intense pressure birthed a massive engineering innovation. The cartels desperately needed technology that could become invisible to radar, hide from marine patrols, and carry a massive amount of cargo. Using hundreds of millions of dollars, the cartels decided to build their own submarine. They constructed these subs entirely out of fiberglass, which completely absorbs and filters out radar signature. While speedboats could only carry a limited amount, these new submarines could easily transport between 10,000 and 20,000 pounds of pure drugs in a single trip. These narco-submarines were so incredibly successful that for years, anti-narcotics police had absolutely no idea how drugs were flooding into Central America. This invisible trend started in the 90s, but the secret didn't completely blow open until 2006, 16 years later, when the very first narco-submarine was finally captured. A U.S. Coast Guard crew was running a routine aerial patrol about 100 miles off the Pacific coast of Costa Rica when they spotted 3 strange plastic pipes sticking out of the water. Beneath the pipes was a 50-foot-long narco-submarine made entirely of wood and fiberglass. The Coast Guard admitted they had heard rumors about these phantom ships for years, but this was the first time anyone had ever actually seen one. So where do cartel engineers build these massive machines? What is it like inside? How far can they travel? And why do smugglers intentionally sink these million-dollar machines the second they finish a job? While roughly 200 have been caught since 2006, authorities firmly believe hundreds more remain completely undetected. There are actually 4 different types of narco-submarines currently in use. First is the low-profile vessel, or LPV. This one doesn't actually completely submerge. Most of the hull sits just below the water, with only a tiny sliver of the top visible above the surface. They are usually about 45 feet long, painted ocean blue to blend in, and incredibly hard to spot from the air. They can carry roughly 15,000 pounds of cocaine. Authorities say these are mostly used for shorter runs from South America up to Central America. The second type is the transatlantic semi-submersible. This is essentially a massive, highly upgraded version of the LPV, stretching over 65 feet long. It is divided into 3 sections, one for the massive diesel engine, one for the crew, and one for the cargo. It has an incredible fuel capacity of over 5,000 gallons, allowing it to easily make massive transatlantic journeys, like traveling all the way from Brazil to the coast of Europe. Surprisingly, they rarely use GPS. The smugglers inside rely entirely on old-school compasses to navigate to avoid digital tracking. The third type is the snorkel sub. This model looks and acts exactly like a real military submarine and can fully submerge beneath the waves. It is about 80 feet long with a thick fiberglass body. When it is moving, only a single thin snorkel pipe sticks above the surface to pull in air for the diesel engine and oxygen for the crew. It even features ballast tanks, allowing it to dive deep into the ocean if it senses danger. To this day, a snorkel sub has never been captured in the open ocean. The fourth, and most terrifying, is the electronic submarine. This is the newest, most advanced vessel in the cartel's arsenal. It is a 40-foot fiberglass tube with absolutely no crew inside. It doesn't use a loud diesel engine. Instead, massive battery banks power 2 silent electric motors. Because it is electric, it makes absolutely zero noise, rendering sonar scanners completely useless. Its only flaw is its short range of about 37 miles. To fix this, cartels tie it to a large legal fishing ship and tow it underwater. If the Coast Guard approaches the fishing ship, they simply cut the rope, and the submarine silently drops to the ocean floor and hides. Authorities say one of these has never been caught in action. They only know they exist because they found prototypes hidden in the jungle. Inside the manned submarines, the conditions are brutal. There is usually a tiny, crude bathroom, a small sleeping mat, and nothing but energy bars and water for the crew to survive on for weeks. So where are these advanced vessels being built? The construction happens in highly secretive makeshift shipyards hidden deep within the impenetrable jungles of South America. These areas are so incredibly remote that reaching them by foot is nearly impossible, and the massive, thick jungle canopy completely hides them from satellites, drones, and helicopters. Experts estimate it costs about $1 million to build a single narco-submarine, but when you consider that it carries 20,000 pounds of cocaine, worth roughly $400 million on the streets, that $1 million price tag is basically pocket change. That is exactly why they are built for one-time use only. The moment a submarine reaches its destination and unloads its cargo, the crew opens a scuttling valve, intentionally sinking the $1 million vessel to the bottom of the ocean so the Coast Guard can never find it, and it can never be traced back to the building. In fact, if the crew is out on the ocean and they realize the Coast Guard is closing in, they don't try to run. They immediately open the emergency valves, intentionally sink the sub along with all the drugs, and jump into the water to be rescued. Why? Before 2008, U.S. law stated that if there was no physical evidence of drugs, the Coast Guard simply had to treat them as shipwrecked sailors and let them go. Because the submarine and the drugs were sitting thousands of feet down on the ocean floor, prosecutors had zero evidence to charge them. Even though the laws were heavily changed in 2008 to close this loophole, smugglers still sink the subs today, knowing that without the physical drugs to show a jury, it is much easier for high-priced cartel lawyers to argue the charges down in court. That is why the ultimate fate of almost every narco-submarine is to end up at the bottom of the ocean, whether it succeeds or gets caught. So how did authorities learn all these incredibly detailed secrets about narco-submarines? In 2022, they captured a massive player in the underworld named Oscar Moreno Ricardo, famously known as the king of the narco-submarines. He wasn't just a smuggler. He was the mastermind engineer behind their construction. Oscar originally started out driving go-fast boats, but eventually used his incredible mechanical skills to become the premier stealth vessel designer for the biggest cartels in Mexico and Colombia. Oscar normally stayed completely hidden in his deep jungle shipyards.
This is a significant win.
Capturing a master builder like Oscar is a massive victory for law enforcement. But the reality is, he is just the tip of the iceberg. Despite every successful raid and arrest, experts know that thousands of pounds of cocaine are still silently gliding beneath the ocean's surface right now, heading for the US and Europe. While the old submarines are intentionally sunk to hide the evidence, you can guarantee that somewhere deep in the Colombian jungle, a new, brilliant engineer is already hard at work designing the next generation of silent, unmanned drone submarines. As long as the massive demand for these drugs exists, the cartels will continue to use their billions of dollars to innovate and evolve. What are your thoughts on this endless game of cat and mouse? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching Voxen TV. If this story was worth your time, drop a like and hit subscribe. It genuinely helps us grow. See you in the next one.